Welcome back to the Lovin Dubai show. We are now joined by the ever-inspiring Mark Colbourne, MBE, who just 2 years after a near-fatal paragliding accident, he went on his way to winning medals galore at paracycling events around the world. Welcome to the show.
Thank you ever so much. Thank you.
We're very excited to have you here. Your story is one of legend, I believe. Your life took a turn, an unexpected turn. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, very much so. Born and bred in Wales, in the United Kingdom, and I guess always being a keen sportsman, you know, always had a great health and well-being upbringing. And I guess paragliding for me was just one of my sports that I enjoyed because I competed in triathlon. I was a keen rock climber. I think my parents probably thought that I was, you know, the early Tom Cruise, shall we say. But in May 2009, unfortunately, whilst paragliding, you know, in my home of Wales, unfortunately, my canopy collapsed.
What does that mean, a canopy collapsed?
So I was flying maybe 40 feet or 15 meters above the ground, and my paragliding canopy just collapsed, you know, through almost a freak of nature. And I guess I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And there's only one way to go, straight down. And I landed on grass, you know, feet first. And as I hit the floor, unfortunately, I actually broke my back, you know, in the impact, you know. So yeah.
Can you remember your thoughts at that moment?
Yes.
You can?
Yes, I can. I can still, even now, you know, sort of 13 years on, I can still see the grass coming up. And I can still see my flying boots as I hit the floor. And that was probably the worst thing to do, was to look down, because then obviously as I hit the floor, my body just compressed. And I broke T12, which is a thoracic fracture. And I guess at the time I thought it was the end of my life. However, you know, it was just the start, shall we say, you know. Interesting.
So after the accident, what was the recovery period? You spent, I guess, 3 months in hospital?
Longer, actually, yeah. I spent 94 days paralyzed on my back, just staring at the hospital ceiling and genuinely, you know, speaking to my parents and just thinking, you know, this is probably the end. Because if you think of the life that I had before, you know, I had a fantastic job working in Cardiff, you know, the capital of Wales, you know, as a senior accounts manager. I was loving life, you know, I really was, and competing in sport every weekend. And yeah, just everything was great, you know. But obviously that curveball, well, it changed everything, you know.
Interesting, like a keen athlete, like it was your life. But what you've just said now is that, you know, it changed your life. What does that mean?
Well, I think if you understand, when we go through change, you know, for instance, the pandemic for the last 2 years, okay, nobody was prepared for the pandemic. We didn't expect it. We didn't think it was going to turn up. It just arrived, you know. So the whole planet experienced the pillars of change, which was apprehension, fear, doubt, and certainly uncertainty, you know, what was going to happen, what's next, you know. So when I went through that experience in hospital of lying in hospital bed, both my legs didn't work, I was paralyzed from the waist down, I just thought, well, if this is going to be my life for the rest of my life, maybe I don't want to go through that, you know. So there was suicidal thoughts, you know, there was just horrible dark times in my mind. And thanks to my parents, you know, who were just, you know, they were just icons. They both passed away now, unfortunately. But I never forget my late father saying to me one evening, after maybe 3 or 4 months, he said, look, you've got to pull yourself together. Just stop upsetting me, stop upsetting your mum, and just get through this, because you're a winner. And that was it. That was the light bulb moment when I thought, he's got a point, you know. So then it was pulling myself together, using my resilience, and just being patient, because the body takes time to repair, you know.
But I'm sure at that point when your late father, and I'm very sorry to your parents, him telling you you're a winner, no one had any idea as to what you were going to achieve.
No.
So how did you jump into, I guess, cycling? And
I think after I spent 6 months in hospital, I spent 12 months learning to walk again, you know, with only half of my legs working. And that was physically tough, that was mentally tough, you know, very frustrating. But I guess we all have this inner warrior that I speak about now on stage, that we can get through it. So when you think there's not one more step, There's never one more step. Trust me, there's always one more step, you know? So leaving hospital, I knew if I got myself fit and active again, because I'd been healthy all my life, that would help me then to maybe go back into the working environment, maybe start to have a life again.
So that was the goal at the time.
It was literally a day-by-day goal to improve just slightly every day, you know, opposed to the previous day, if that makes sense, you know. And that's when, I guess that's when the childhood dream really started, you know. And I suppose I can sit here today with a smile on my face because I have gratitude, okay? I'm very grateful. Not only grateful to be here, but to be alive, because technically I shouldn't be. You know, I should be in the local cemetery in South Wales, and I'm just so grateful, you know.
Grateful to be alive, but you sit here before us as a Paralympic medalist holder, which is just phenomenal. So that giant leap, can you show us?
Yes,
and tell us about the journey of like going into the Paralympics and being part of all of that, and just like a whole new life.
Even today, I still pinch myself, you know, I really do. Even now, 10 years on, you know, 2022 is the 10-year anniversary, you know, for the home games at London, you know, the Olympics and the Paralympics. And the journey started, actually, believe it or not, in June 2010. And people say to me, how do you remember those dates? Because it was
Your
just the start.
accident was 2009.
2009, yeah. So,
wow.
So 1 year on, after, you know, after breaking my back, I started cycling with a disability, as I've explained. And we were actually doing a charity bike ride for the Wales Air Ambulance, who were the organisation that treated me on the day of my crash.
Wow.
So I wanted to give back. I wanted to raise money for this incredible organisation that saves lives, you know, 52 weeks of the year. So we're doing this bike ride. I'd been riding about 6 months, 5 or 6 months at this point, and I'll never forget this moment. The first day was 84 miles on this bike ride, because it was a full 7 days, 520 miles in a week. And this guy tapped me on the shoulder at the end of the day, and he says to me, I'd like to have a word with you after you finish your food. I'll see you outside. Now, this guy was like 100 kilograms of muscle. And I thought, oh dear, I've done something wrong here, you know. So we go.
It's going to eat really slowly.
Yeah, so I was on crutches at the time. So I took my crutches with me just in case, because I didn't know what I'd done, you know. And this gentleman says, what's wrong with your legs? So I explained lower leg paralysis, only half my legs work. And then we had a great conversation about how I was cycling with a disability, but not just how I was cycling, but how I was keeping up with all of the able-bodied riders, you know. So this gentleman, after this conversation, he said to me, can I ask you a question? I said, yes, of course. He said, are you training for the London 2012 Paralympic Games?
Goosebumps.
I said, sorry? He said, are you training for the London Games in 2 years' time? I said, no. Why the hell would I do that? He said, I think you should. And that was it. The light bulb moment. And I just thought, oh my gosh, what if I can transform my life to, you know, from breaking my back to maybe breaking records at the home games, you know? Excuse me. So I said to this gentleman, I said, can I ask you who you are? And he said, my name is Dr. Ben Matthews. I'm a chiropractor from Wales, from Cardiff. And I said, thank you. Thank you for planting that seed, because he saw a glimpse of brilliance in me, okay? Because obviously he treats athletes in his clinic every day. And that was the start. So I went home, I spoke to my parents after the bike ride that week, and I said to my mum, God love her, I said, I'm going to start training for the Paralympics next week. She said, oh, good luck. What would you like for tea? It just went over her head, you know. And my dad said to me, he said, Paralympics? What do you mean Paralympics, Mark? And I said, look, Dad, I'm going to start training. You know, I'm just gonna give it a go, because in my opinion, everybody, you know, fails at something, okay? But what's not okay is not trying. I said, I'm going to start training for the Paralympics. And he said, Mark, come here. He put his arm around me and he said, look, don't be so foolish. Just go back to work. Just go back to work. just forget this Olympic, Paralympic dream that you've always had ever since I was a child, you know?
Really? You've had that dream?
Ever since I was a kid. All my friends knew I wanted to be a professional athlete in whatever sport. And my dad said to me, just go back to work. And I said, Dad, come here. I said, if you remember, you taught me as a child that if you have a dream in life, whatever that dream is, just never give up. No, I said, I'm going to do this with or without you. I said, it's your choice. Oh, you do whatever you want, he said. I said, because if I'm going to be successful, it's going to be down to me. If I'm going to fail, it'll be down to me. And he turned to my mother, Margaret, and he said, Margaret, have a word with your son. I think he's lost it. And that was the start. That was the start of meeting great coaches, great nutritionists.
Well, this is the thing, like you decide within 2 years you want to do London 2012. Is the infrastructure there for you in Wales to kind of get the training in? And what's the preparation process like to get to kind of peak condition for the games?
It is. And there's a lot that isn't known about Disability Sport Wales. There certainly is more now known about Disability Sport Wales. And I have to commend and thank my great friend and great first cycling coach, is a gentleman called Neil Smith. And Neil Smith is an incredible individual who gives up his time as a volunteer because he has an incredible global job, a global professional job, that he gives up his time, to help disabled people like myself to then make it into the world-class cycling program. So Neil is almost like a facilitator as a talent scout, you know. And Neil rang British Cycling and he said to British Cycling, this is a great story. He said, I have an athlete in Wales. He's 40 years of age, 41 almost, and he's really powerful. He's a C1 category rider, which is my category.
What does that mean?
So there's 5 different categories in paracycling. So you have C5, C4, C3, C2, and C1, which is myself, okay, which is the most disabled in paracycling. And Neil said, I have this athlete, he's 41, he's really powerful, you know, he's broken his back. And British Cycling said, well, we've never heard of him before, you know, where does he come from? And Neil's words were, he's fell out of the sky, literally. So British Cycling came to take a look at me in the velodrome, wow, you know, in South Wales, and they said, okay, we'll take you on, almost as a gamble, you know, and 5 races later, 5 medals later, that was just the start, you know, that was the start. And then moving to Manchester, becoming part of the, you know, the British Cycling, world-class cycling program, that was just a dream come true. You know, training twice a week with people like, you know, Sir Chris Hoy, you know, Victoria Pendleton, all of these global icons, you know, Sarah Storey, Jodie Cundy, world champions, Paralympic champions, world record holders.
Everyone going for Olympics at that point.
And Margaret's boy turns up literally out of the blue, you know, to live out this journey, you know, and it was a hell of a journey. So then I won the World Championships in Los Angeles, which was February 2012, 7 months before the Games, which I guess even now was a very memorable moment for me and a very sad moment because it was the day before my race, my dad passed away. So you can imagine, now you know the story. Now you know the emotions of traveling to Los Angeles with British Cycling to represent my country, you know, to then have that phone call to say that my dad had passed away with stomach cancer, you know. So when you dig deep to the emotional reason why we do what we do, this is so important for your audience. As I said earlier on, when you think there's no more steps left, think about why you're doing what you're doing. Who are you doing it for? And for me, it was my dad, you know. So the next day, I won the World Championships, you know, the 3-kilometer pursuit. And even now, to this day, I still can't remember the race.
Really?
Just because I guess I was full of tears, you know, emotions, anger, frustration. And yeah, you know, it was a difficult time, but a very joyful time. And that was the start to the run-up.
The road to the Olympics. For
London 2012, you know, when the whole world was watching, you know, and the whole country got behind us. So to 100%. Go into the Paralympics as a world champion, the pressure was on me, which is fine. All the work was done, all the training, you know, the diet, the lifestyle, the mindset, you know. And what I have in the box is my childhood dream.
Amazing.
You know. So yeah, so going into the Paralympics
Wow.
to, to chase this dream after everything I've been through, I can't thank the people that helped me, the coaches, working with Professor Steve Peters, who was the psychiatrist at British Cycling and the psychologist, of just helping me to become the person I always wanted to be, to win that medal that I always wanted to, but never thought was possible. I never thought it was possible. But a big thanks to all the people that did help to make that dream come true. And, to go into the London Paralympic Games was just a moment, just a moment in time I'll never forget. And even now, as a former world and Paralympic champion, as an international speaker, I now travel the world sharing, the key principles, that have helped me.
This is the thing, like you mentioned the day before the Worlds, your dad passed away, and you speak a lot about kind of dealing with setbacks. People who have, I guess, setbacks maybe in comparison to yours, smaller, bigger, whatever. What is like a key takeaway that you can share with people who might be at home watching now, who have small, their own issues that they're looking to overcome? Is there anything small you can share with them?
Very much so, and that's one of my passions now, is helping other people. Helping other people to deal with change. And the first thing to identify,
change is a nice way rather than a setback.
100%, yeah, 100%. Because the one thing to understand is change will always happen. Okay, in our life, through the evolution of human beings, change will always happen. Don't think it will never stop, because it'll always continue. But it's identifying the voice in our head that allows us to think emotionally rather than the human that thinks logically. Does that make sense? So to move on with change, just very quickly, otherwise it's a 1 hour conversation.
I know, but I could be learning, so I'm like all ears.
is how we deal with change thinking logically, not emotionally. So think about this. All of your audience, okay? Put yourself in my position on the start line, racing in the Paralympic final, okay, in London 2012. If I thought about the crowd, the noise, 7,000 people, if I thought about the competitor I was racing against, those thoughts are not going to help me to win. But what will help me to win is the logical thinking, step-by-step process to win. So holding on tight, breathing in deep, listening for the beeps. Beep, beep, beep. And as soon as you start thinking logically, the crowd disappear. The emotions disappear. It's all about logical thinking. So to deal with change, it's difficult. I'm not saying it's easy. But in my opinion, it's the old saying, is it easy to get to the top? Hell no. Is it possible? Absolutely. So it's overcoming change through logical thinking. Okay, there is a time and a place for emotion. I agree, 100%, but not if you're trying to overcome something that's unprecedented change, if that makes sense. How many people have broke their screen on their mobile phone? Okay, that's a small change, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a huge change. So it's overcoming it with, okay, I broke my screen. How do I get it fixed? There's simple logical thinking, isn't it?
I hope we can take something from that and I guess use it in our own daily lives. This, one would assume, would be a career highlight, which of course it is. But then you went on to be an Order of the British Empire. Would that be the career highlight for you? And what was that moment like?
I think the important thing for me, is, being awarded the MBE by His Royal Highness Prince Charles is not something you can train for. It's a gift. It's a gift that's given by the country for my services to sport, my services to my country. And for me personally, it was my services to my family, because both my parents understandably thought I was crazy. I've just broken my back. Now I want to start training for the Paralympics. I said to my dad, I said, I'm not crazy. I'm far from crazy. I'm just a logical thinking human being who holds emotion to one side as and when I need to use it, if that makes sense, But to be awarded the MBE, to take my mother, because my dad had obviously passed away, to take my mum.
Your mum was there for that moment.
My mum was there, my daughter was there as well, and yeah, it was her day. It was my mum's day, because think about everything she had seen her son go through, you know. It was just probably heartbreaking for her, you know. And I'll never forget the moment, you know, that my parents came into the hospital the day I broke my back. And my mother was in tears. And my dad leaned over and he held me and he said, I told you to be careful, didn't I? And I'm like, oh, Dad, now is not the time, you know. But that's emotional thinking, you know. So to take my mum to Buckingham Palace, to the most prestigious, you know, house in the world almost, you know, it was her day. And the great thing for me personally is that my mum's birthday is the same as Prince Charles, the 14th of November. So Prince Charles, sir, if you're watching, you know, that's just a great moment for me and my family, you know.
Look, what an honor. It was her day, but it was also your day. And your story is so inspirational. It's been a true honor. That's unfortunately the time that we have today, but it's been a true honor.
Thank you.
To have you on the show, and those like little tidbits that hopefully we can transform into our own lives. We really appreciate your time. So thank you for coming in today.
My pleasure, and good luck, everybody. Thank you.
Guys, that is all we have time for on the Lovin Dubai show. That was Mark Colbourne, MBE, and we'll see you tomorrow morning, same time, same place. Stay safe and wash your hands. Bye-bye.